When we started this ancient schoolroom, it lasted about an hour, and it now lasts an entire day, so it's developed quite a lot.
The children that we brought today, they're being dealt with singly, so I was rather surprised at the informal, gentle, almost child-centred approach.
There's no set start time to an ancient school. The teacher is there first, the children walk in one at a time, and the teacher never talks to the class as a whole. The teacher gives you an exercise, and you go and do it individually. And when you're ready, you come up to the teacher and you go over it with the teacher individually. Because it's so different from what we do, it helps them get into the swing of acting like an ancient child.
In our school, we usually do it all together. We do the same thing, but there's everyone sitting around like doing different things. I liked writing on the ink, but also I really liked trying to read the poetry. Because usually we just use like paper or look at the board. It's quite nice to use different things and use the wax tablet or the ink.
We're not really used to using ink. We're used to using pens or pencils. It's just interesting to see how much our lives have changed.
Yeah.
We were all invited to participate in the Being Human Humanities Festival. The idea was that you bring your research to a wider audience. I work on editing obscure texts. I thought, is a public lecture exactly the right way to bring these texts to the wider public? This is a reconstruction of a papyrus from around 400 AD, which has got one of my Latin textbooks on. It's half in Latin and half in Greek, and it's good for showing people what an ancient book looked like. That's the kind of thing that really gets people excited. What we need to allow my research to genuinely reach a wider public is an event where you look at a lot of these reconstructions and actually get immersed in it and act as if you were in antiquity. And I thought, actually, this would be a lot of fun. We started doing things like copying papyri and making tunics and figuring out how to buy a wax tablet. And before you knew it, we had this ancient schoolroom.
In the ancient schoolroom, unlike modern schoolrooms, you're dealing with one child at a time. So you're really doing that one-on-one teaching, and you can see how that child is handling the exercises, and you can help them improve and really teach in a way that you don't usually get to teach in the modern day.
When I did maths, I found it very different to how we do it at school. We use counters and boards, and we use numerals instead of numbers.
This is a replica of a Roman counting board. It's got an area for putting counters for ones, it's got an area for fives, it's got tens, 50s, hundreds, 500s, thousands, and the principle is every time you move something in that direction, you're multiplying it by 10. Every time you move something in that direction, you're multiplying it by 5, and you can do all the arithmetic operations using those principles.
Reading is the central task you do in an ancient school, and reading is not like reading today because they don't leave space between the words, they don't have punctuation, there's no distinction between capital and lowercase letters. And also, they learned to read on really archaic poetry. So we've always started off reading the Iliad in the Dryden translation with no spaces between the words. We've always had wax tablets and ostraca, which are pieces of broken flower pots with pen and ink.
I didn't know about them writing on shards of pottery, on the ostraca. I knew that in Greece they used to vote on them to ostracize people, but I did not know that they use that as it were, scrap paper in schools, and that's absolutely fascinating. And it's very good that the children have experienced it.
It's really hard to draw on the wax tablets because you have to write so small, and I kept going up and asking whether it was small enough. My writing was like that big.
We were sent a list of all of the jobs that we could choose from, and we had a look through, and we just thought papyrus merchant sounded like something different from last year and something that we could get into.
We've set up a stall and we've made posters and worked out how to set stuff up so that it's like enticing to the children to want to try different kind of stuff.
And it seems like it's been working.
Yeah.
This is Roman soft bread. It is from the Roman cookery book by Mark Grant. It's an adapted recipe for the modern kitchen, and then we've been serving this with something called Morton and Cato's olive relish. It is different, and it's something that you don't get to do every day. There is nothing like it where I'm from, and it's something that the kids can get involved with, and we've had lots of really good feedback from them.
There's really nothing else like it. It's definitely in the UK and probably in the world.
I'll take away quite a lot from this. First of all, the basic experience of being a child again, just something which, as you can guess, is rather far off for me. The experience of being taught, the difficulties children have, not just in seeing the board, but actually in being able to sort out the letters, dyslexia, and all sorts of other inabilities, which we so easily forget.
Children come in, they don't know anything about the subject, and they just enjoy it so much, and they come out with a whole new interest.
I've learnt practical skills because I have learnt how to cut a quill pen in the run-up to this. It's more thinking more deeply about the ancient texts and what would it really have been like to live in under those circumstances, and what experiences fed into producing those texts. The reenactment has been really, really valuable for that.
It will certainly inform the way I teach classics and classical civilization.
Being able to be immersed in this ancient schoolroom, which is as authentic as possible in the modern day, I think it's really going to give me a new dimension to my research. I think I'll be reading these texts in a different way, and I think I'll be able to understand what these texts say and what they mean and what it would have been like to be an ancient teacher or an ancient student.
Some of the things I've learnt include how sharp and quick on the uptake some of the young children are, and finding that there are children who are too young to know about interest rates but who quickly pick up the concept and start doing compound interest in Roman numerals.
Different things are easy, and things are easy for different children. So we had somebody last year who was selectively mute, so she could sometimes talk and sometimes not. Now that's a tough thing to have in a modern class, but in an ancient classroom, nobody except the teacher is looking at you when you're talking to the teacher. They're all busy doing their own exercises, so when the selective mute person comes up, she's having an individual private conversation with the teacher, and suddenly she has no problem talking to the teachers. So we got a lovely letter from her mother afterwards about how she really wished all schools could be like the ancient school.